Hello and welcome to Your Business, Your Wealth. My name is Paul Adams. I am founder and CEO of Sound Financial Group, and I'm joined by my partner and illustrious co-host of Your Business, Your Wealth, Cory Shepard. Cory, I'm so glad, as always, to have you here, sharing a little fireside chat, if you will, with our audience and getting to part 4 of our 100 list today.
I'm excited about part 4 as well. I'm excited about getting a fire involved in our podcast. Like maybe we should get a nice hearth setting and we can both be sitting by the fire. It'd be nice for this winter.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe cigars and scotch, but if we do cigars and scotch, we cannot ever record into the second hour. It would just be a mess. Speaking of great podcasts, though, last week, we hope all of you got a chance to enjoy having Scott Adams with us here on the podcast. And if you haven't had a chance to listen to that one, I think it's an amazing one. You know, on the podcast, we talk so much about concepts for business owners, founders, entrepreneurs. And what I loved about what Scott was able to share with us was just the idea of some of the things around influence, the way we might think and communicate that could be so different as business owners, and realizing that somebody that has literally a multi-million-dollar enterprise like the Dilbert comic strip and multiple best-selling books still has some of the same difficulties and troubles that, you know, the guy that owns, 3 or 4 different service shops for cars, or who has several restaurants, or the person that has the janitorial cleaning company, that they still have some fundamental issues in the business that are shared among all business owners. It's so neat to kind of see that uncovered that way.
Well, because we're all fundamentally susceptible to those hypnosis techniques that are used in marketing and media out there. No one's immune. And he says, even if you know about it, you're still not immune. You can know that it's working on you and just watch it working.
You might be thinking right now, you probably are thinking right now, that I know about those things so that they don't work on me. But they do still work on you, just like that technique I just used to predict that you might be thinking this. One of 2 things could happen, which I think is funny. Scott Adams leaves out a lot of his stuff. Is one part that can happen is that you were thinking that, and then me saying that just increased trust. Or you could have not been thinking it, but then you immediately begin thinking it, and then you think that you've been thinking that for the last 15 minutes. And when you think that you've been thinking the last 15 minutes, it also increases trust with the person who's speaking. And I think that those are the kinds of influences we have in our key employees, our spouses, our families, our church communities, and in the wider base of employees inside of our companies, not to mention customers. So
I'm thinking if you haven't watched that episode, you should go watch or listen to it right now. And direct requests are also very persuasive, according to Scott's book. So.
Yes, you may be thinking right now that you should pause this podcast and then go listen to the Scott Adams one, and you'd be right. You when you come back in a few minutes. But for the rest of you that already heard that episode, hopefully that revisited a couple of key concepts for you. And we are going to go into today's last 25 of the 100 things you shouldn't do to help keep your finances in order. Now, I'm sure there's going to be some double negatives in our list here at some point out of 100. And yet, what we're going to do different today is we've been playing with this idea of the 1-minute limit for every one of these items that either goes to Cory or to me. And this time, for those of you that are watching the video of our show, we have a scoreboard. And so we have this incredible video engineer who's just over in the wings, and he is getting ready to flag us for points. So with that, Cory, do you want to kick us off with number 76? So Cory, why don't you kick us off with number 76 in our last installment of the 100 things you shouldn't do to get your finances in order?
Happy. All right, number 76, keep people in your friendship circle that you can't talk to about your career and financial goals. Ready? Set.
Go.
All right. So there's lots of research that's been done about human social networks, not Facebook, but on the networks of humans in relation to each other. And the people that we know have a huge impact on us. You know, there's lots of studies that even a friend of a friend of a friend will have an impact on you. Like if they tend to be overweight, you're going to have a higher likelihood of being overweight. I've heard other social experts say things like you're the average of the 4 or 5 people you hang out with the most. Bottom line is we're going to pick up habits. We're going to pick up practices. We're going to pick up some kind of momentum from the people we're with. And if we can't talk about these important things like our career and financial goals, then we're going to get momentum in the wrong direction, or the momentum is going to take us somewhere else. And so people are going to make us offers, suggest that we do things. If friends want to go away on vacation, drop of the hat, and you're like, well, no, I have to stay at the office because I got to get this thing done because I have some big goals for my life.
And that is a point for Paul Adams. Well, technically, that's a point for Cory on the screen. It's going to be like golf.
Yeah.
The lower the points, the better. So, Cory, thank you for that. Was there anything else you wanted to make sure to finish it? You already went over time. May as well. You go another 15 minutes now. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. We got to be able to talk about those important things in our life so that our friends can support us. And if they're not supporting us in those most important things in our life, then maybe they're really not our friend.
Ooh, I like that. That was a nice way that was a little icing on that cake. All right. Yeah. I'm ready for number 77 if you're ready for me to take it.
Yep. Not talk with your kids about money. Go.
All right. So one of the things, if you're much like me growing up, the thing that you were taught was do not talk about money. As a curious kid, you're doing things like just randomly asking somebody, what do you make a year? How much does this cost? And there is some politeness issues that we have to address with kids around money. Like, don't just walk up to somebody and be like, how much does that cost? That's not, what do you make a year? What did you have to pay that person? How much was dinner tonight? Those are not the appropriate questions about money. But too often we blanket say to our children, to easy parenting, is say, we don't talk about money. I want to encourage all of you to consider bucking that trend, because the worst thing that can happen if you talk about money in your household is that your children will tell other people what you make for a living. That is not the end of the world. What is the end of the world is having children that are afraid to talk about money and then don't build proper disciplines around it. Talk about money, which will also, just like every other area of your life, if you're trying to set an example, you do better if you're talking to your kids about it. Made it.
Oh, man. In by a nose. Just saved it. I'm ready. I want you to get your first point so bad now. This is changing everything.
Just knowing that the scoreboard's being displayed makes a difference. How about you take number 78, not giving charitably?
All right. Ready, go. So it can feel incredibly difficult if if you've had major expenses lately, if you're just getting started, if you feel like cash flow is really tight, to make any room for giving money away, because you feel like you need all of it right there for yourself. And that's exactly why having a discipline of giving charitably makes all the difference in the world. No matter what the amount is that you start at, having some amount being given every month just helps you start to think about this world of abundance, this ability to think bigger than yourself, think long term, and make a difference out there in the world. I think if we have too much focus on ourselves, we're going to only see problems, but starting to help somebody else helps us see the bigger picture and what's available out there in the world. So wherever you're starting, start a strategy now and increase it over time. It'll make a huge difference in your life. Yes. 3 seconds.
You made it.
Left.
Look at that.
Made it.
There was 2 seconds left on my clock. Do you want to take, I could take 2 in a row and then you take 2 in a row?
Yeah, I like that.
All right, we'll do that. I'm going to do number 79, which is not having all of your important documents stored virtually and encrypted. Ready? And go. So this one is pretty easy. For most people, we've grown up in households where our parents had like that one file box, or maybe it was in a safe that had the important documents. Maybe had the will and trust, some insurance policies, things like that. Maybe birth certificates were all sort of in one place in that important document box somewhere in the house. My parents had one of those green, like light green kind of, it had a little latch on the front of it. It was hard plastic back before the hard plastic containers were constantly being used. That file box, although transportable, didn't allow us the kind of freedom that we have today. And too often the problem is not that people don't have any virtual storage capacity. It's that they have it in all kinds of different places and it's not organized. So just making sure you get everything uploaded and stored in a way where you know where it all is, you know how it's organized, so that you can lay your hands on those documents should you ever need them from wherever you are in the world. All right, that is number 79, within time. And then number 80 is not being academically allocated and globally diversified. Ready?
Ready.
Go. All right. So too often what people end up doing is they buy something that has done well in the recent past. The most susceptible people get to this is inside their 401ks, employer sponsored plans, or if you are the employer, you're looking at the funds that probably your head of HR selected that are now in your plan. And if you're wondering which ones to buy, it sort of makes sense. I'll just go back through the ones that had the best 1-year track record or 3-year track record, select those, and that's where I'm going to put my money. But if we look at all the different asset classes and how they perform, the one that did really, really well last year is the one that's probably statistically least likely to repeat that performance. And you can end up with massive over-concentration of the same stocks. For instance, if you chose 1-year returns and yet in the last 1 year, what performed best was large cap growth stocks, you're going to end up with a bunch of US-based large cap growth stocks, which is why when we analyze people's portfolios, 70% of their money may be in the same holdings. I know I went over. I had to give one to you, Cory. So all I would throw out in ending that is that it is super easy, because I don't want people to overlook that. When you buy mutual funds that had very similar performances over the last year, they may well be investing in the exact same stuff. So you could have 5 or 6 mutual funds, think you're well diversified because they've got them even with different fund families, and yet find out that most of your money is actually in the same part of the market. So your diversification did nothing to actually lower your risk, because it wasn't the right type of diversification. It was by fund family or by fund name, but not by asset class. Cory, you got 2 coming up here.
I like this double, like gets you a little warmed up.
Yeah, you got to get one to the next. Do you want me to read off the 81?
Please do.
Number 81, conflating a 529 plan with a college funding plan. Go.
Paul, would anyone consider Social Security a retirement plan? Does anyone call Social Security, just knowing that it's there, a retirement plan?
Probably not in the last 20 years.
No, definitely not in the last 20 years. That's some income, but it's not a plan for all of retirement. Same reason why no one should conflate a 529 plan with a college funding plan. Yes, it's a tool the government gives us, but it's not the plan. It's just one piece of a tool, and it only guarantees that money will be spent on college. It goes to that plan. So it's a form of funding. A lot of families have it, but there's all kinds of other ways to save for college and create a strategy around college. You don't have to limit yourself just to a 529. And that's it. I think I could have ended at the Social Security comment. Like that would have been fun, but I feel like saying a little bit more.
Leave the rest open like a riddle. All right.
Yeah.
Number 82, not committing to becoming financially independent. Number 82, not being committed to becoming financially independent. Go.
Ready? So it's so easy to say, I'm going to start my path to independence later. I'm going to start saving for the future later. Usually it's once blank happens, then I'll start. Thoughts crossed my mind that I quickly pushed away as my wife was going through medical school. We're spending all this money on school. She's not working. She doesn't have an income. Once we get past that, then we'll really get serious about putting money together. And it's like, no, because once you get away from it, it's so hard to come back, because we get used to spending all that money on whatever we're spending in sauce of life. And the amount of money that we lose by just waiting even a few years, like the power of compounding is so real. And any money you can set aside, even during a time that's tough to do so, is going to give you a huge bump that you'll be happy to have later in life. Nice.
Look at you. Another one within time. Now,
well within time. Do we get to bank up our seconds for later answers?
No, we don't have anything that will show that on screen. Yeah. So
I think next time a chess clock we'll use. It'll be
Yeah, just
great.
like tapping either side of it.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. As we continue to increase the production quality here at Your Business, Your Wealth, we will explore a shot clock, chess clock. Let's do something a little fun. Let's do number 83 together. I'll take the first half. You take the second half.
Wait.
Let me finish.
Okay.
And no overtime on this one if we share it. Because I know right where you're going. Wait, I don't want the first.
Who's going to get the point?
Yeah. No points on this one. Number 83 is not knowing the rule around 4% distribution. I think this one's pretty easy. We put ourselves in the position all the time where we're having conversations with potential clients and we ask the question, do you know how much money it will take for you to have financial independence? What's the amount of capital at work that's required? We only get an answer that is different than the answer that we give during our philosophy conversation. So, but here's our philosophy, and then they apply. We only hear an answer different about 1 in 20 or less times, meaning less than 5% of people we meet with have an idea of the 4% rule and what that means in terms of their income.
And if they do know about the 4% rule, like they've read an article, usually they're not familiar with where it comes from, and the studies were done about the ups and downs of the market and how to wind your way through the difference between average returns and actual returns. And so yeah, it's a great starting point for the conversation. Just to quickly bring up a number in your mind, $40,000 per million of assets saved, so you can get a sense of where you need to be.
Very good. Very good. And that was our freebie and being able to go over.
Yeah. Paul, you want to take 84?
I'm on it.
All right. Not solving for the future state. Go.
All right. This is one that we see all the time. When people are moving around in their regular lives, what's easy to do is you solve the problems that you have at the same state you're in when you have the problems. Meaning somebody at the start of their career begins to set aside money for their retirement or their future based upon their current levels of income and what's it going to take to replace 70% of that. But odds are, over your lifetime, you're going to make much more money than the amount of money you're making in your 20s. As a result, you have to solve for your future state, which means we have to make our savings, insurance, business, and career decisions based upon who will I be in the next 10 years and which of these decisions is best going to serve that future version of myself and that future state of my life. All right.
Wow. That was it's good for me that we're not banking our seconds, because you would just banked a good 12 there. That's
good, because I forgot to start the timer and I didn't know where I was. For all I know, I had gone over. So thank you for the great news.
Maybe that's the key.
Yeah, that's right. Let's see. Number 85. This one's to Cory. Not thinking about your future self. Ooh, what a nice fit with the last one. Yeah. Not thinking about your future self as someone you have to be a fiduciary for. Ready and go.
One of my favorite shows is How I Met Your Mother, and we've probably talked about it on the podcast before. This idea that it's from one of the characters that it's future Ted's problem. He'll handle it then, but then invariably current Ted becomes future Ted and has to deal with it. And when we think about a fiduciary duty, let's not even make it about business. For folks who have a pet or a child, that should be about 85 to 90% of everyone listening. There are things that you would do to yourself that you would never let occur to them. They're going to get food on time. They're going to be warm. They're going to be dry. You might drop all kinds of good habits for yourself, but not for the things that you have a duty to take care of. Mm-hmm. Think of yourself and your future self as someone you have a duty to take care of, and all kinds of new things will open up in your life.
Ooh, I like that. You know, the thing that I love about the idea of that fiduciary, that we're a fiduciary for our future self, would be if you had to meet you at the handoff. Let's call it age 65, could be earlier or later for some people, but you're meeting them and you've got the handoff and you're like, well, here's what I've been doing all these years, 40 years. We've been living our life and sending kids to school, everything else. And you're taking it from here, older version of me that I meet at age 55 or whatever. And here's the balance sheet I prepared for you. I owed you $5 million capital at work when we got here, and I have $2.5 million. That's it.
Ooh.
Have you ever had a friend who owed you money and they can't pay it, or if you've ever been that person who owed money and couldn't pay it, it's an awful feeling. And yet, that's the feeling we can have when facing the older version of us one day in the future. And I can't take away how important that really can be for us as individuals, because we've said it before on the podcast, but you're going to hear me repeat it more and more. The feedback loop for financial decisions is so long, meaning like 40 years of a career long. You cannot learn from your mistakes. You're just left to live with them when they're financial. And so that's why we do the work that we do, and the coaching and the time we spend with people and projecting, is we need to make sure that we shorten that feedback loop enough that you can make appropriate decisions today to take care of that future. Which I think with that, Cory, if it's okay with you, this might be a good spot to just hear a little bit from our team over at Sound Financial Group.
Very good.
Hey, everybody. I had to interrupt our show for just a moment to share with you something new. We've designed a new white paper that we think is going to add you value in the way that you think about money. It's 3 of the biggest mistakes we see people make and 6 ways to fix them. Now, for some of you, you might not want the white paper. You might be ready to have a conversation with us, and that is okay. You can email us at info@sfgwa.com. That's info@sfgwa.com. Find us on the web at yourbusinessyourwealth.com. And anytime on any of our social media platforms, send us a message and we can get you this white paper. But in the meanwhile, if you want to just skip over the white paper, have a philosophy conversation with us, we're happy to do that with you. Just let us know philosophy conversation in the subject line. And if you want this white paper, just put white paper in there and we'll immediately get out to you this white paper on the 3 biggest mistakes that we see people make and the 6 things that you can do to fix them. And now, back to our show.
And welcome back to part 4 of 100 Things Not to Do to Take Care of Your Financial Future. We are back with Paul and number 86, not having a written future state with your spouse. Go.
Right on. I thought Cory was going to do that one. I don't know why, but I just thought, so this is a bit of a surprise. I just ate up 6 of my seconds explaining that. The thing is, with your family and with your spouse, what too often happens is spouses can be marching through the future just obsessed with the day-to-day. Take my wife, homeschools our 3 kids, ages, let's see, by the end of this year, they'll be 7, 8, 9 years old. We're also planning the 1-year trip in our RV next year. That a lot of that stuff is right on her radar. And in fact, spouses can function a way where one spouse is very short-term in their thinking, and the other spouse is very long-term. My wife, the next 30 to 60 days mean the world to her. To me, it's the next 10 or 15 years. But if we don't have a written plan for what we want our life to look like, odds are neither of us are going to be taking the actions that get us closer to it. And as a couple, you can drift apart. So we just highly recommend people, to the extent you can, write down what you want life to look like in 3 years and then work toward it together. That was close.
That was close. Jordan,
right.
Just even though you heard the ring, that's not an automatic point. I'll give you
You're giving me that one?
Yeah.
You want to take 87 and I'll take 88. That'll be a fun piggyback.
Mm-hmm.
Number 87, Cory Shepard, is overestimate the value of real estate on your balance sheet. Overestimating the value of real estate on your balance sheet. Go.
Real estate of any kind is such a illiquid investment. It's not easily bought or sold at a moment's notice like a stock. So to say this is what I think the value of my real estate is on my balance sheet, whether it's a home or a rental property, well, the answer is the value is what a person is willing to write a check for the moment that they write that check. And so you can inflate your net worth just by thinking about what it's going to be worth when you sell it. Our home, we don't call it an asset. We call it a lifestyle choice, an expense, something we're consuming. So I would greatly discount the value of that anyway. But let's just take a rental property. I'd rather you focus on the cash flow that's coming off of that property as the value, not the giant cash out amount when you sell it, because we just don't know what markets are going to look like when we sell those assets.
Nice work.
Thank you.
So on the next one, number 88, overestimate the value of any asset on your balance sheet. Go. All right. So picking up where Cory left off, there are things called book value assets. These are assets that normally how you define a book value asset is that it's an asset that has inherent value. You just have to hold it to term, like a AAA rated municipal bond on your balance sheet. As long as you can hold it to term, is a book value asset. You can just assign the original value of the bond because it's guaranteed. But in this case, there's all kinds of other things that are kind of book value assets that you book the value you want them to be on your balance sheet, even though they're a market-based asset. That could be real estate, collectibles, you name it. So like a great example is I had these paintings that everybody had told me were worth $5,000 each. And I had them for a long time. They no longer fit our decor. I sent them off to a gallery. Those have now been listed for 2.5 years with no action. I don't know. They're probably not worth $5,000 or I would have my money by now. Same thing with every other asset. If you overvalue it, then you are inflating the value of your balance sheet. Man, I want to say so much more about that.
I know. It's great. It's hard.
Give me a point. I want to keep going on that one. Okay. I will try to get it back. I might lose, but I have to say this because I think for all of you listening, this is really key. One thing we do when, say, a business owner is working with us, which is a great majority of who we work with. We also work with some of the high income earning executives and professionals that kind of $300,000 to $2 million income range. So you guys know we do go below 300,000 if you're a really good saver, if you're super coachable, and if you're a household that still makes all your own decisions, and we don't have to meet with, we don't have this like decision by posse. We'll make some exceptions to work with households that earn over $2 million a year. So that 300,000 to $2 million, it's easy to add your business to that balance sheet as like, say, a $10 million value, and it might sell for $10 million. The way we record is we put that business down while we're working on planning to avoid this tranquilizing effect of the extra money on your balance sheet. What we'll do is add that asset at zero, but add the perceived value or your best interpretation of the value as part of the naming convention of the business. The ABC company, 10 million. That way, that value doesn't wear down our likelihood to take appropriate action to fulfill on a strong enough personal balance sheet one day to have definite financial independence, even if the business doesn't sell or doesn't sell for as much. So it's just key. Overestimating the value of any of these assets will tranquilize you to not take appropriate action to the threats that are around you every day financially. Okay. I'll take the point. Hopefully that was worth it to the audience. I don't get 2 points because I went over an extra minute. It's just a blank slate after you go over once you eat the point. All right. Cory, number 89. You could think that 100% of your 401k or your IRA are yours. Go.
So if anyone looks at their 401k statement that they get from their employer plan, it's just going to show whatever value is in there. Say you're on the younger side, you've got $100,000. It just says your name, $100,000. Reality is you're going to have to pay taxes on that money as you pull it out. The IRS already knows some of that money is yours. They just don't advertise that fact in advance, but they're letting you invest it for them. So really what we should have is something like $100,000 total value, 30% IRS money, leaving the other 70,000 being yours. That would be a lot more accurate. Although I'm guessing at 30%, but the truth is it's a business deal with the IRS where you're holding on to their money and they're going to tell you how much you owe on the loan when you get there, which can be a scary deal for some people.
Yep. It's like a shadow that you never escape is the way I think about that tax bill.
Absolutely. Paul, 90 gives you a little bit more time to talk on our balance sheet topic. Think your business balance sheet matters for retirement. Go.
Okay. Your business balance sheet only matters for your retirement to the extent that that balance sheet on a consistent, predictable, and regular basis is feeding your personal balance sheet. You see, for everybody listening here, as you have a business, you'll notice we talk about the idea that you will never be financially independent on your business balance sheet. Never. You know why? We all know somebody who was super successful in their business, got to where they could work 2-3 days a week. Maybe they could even take extended vacations, etc. But as long as they still owned the business and it was an important asset to them, we've all also seen that person get pulled back in because of a regulatory change, a market change, a new competitor come into the market, losing a key employee drives them back into the business, and they got to turn the business around again, or they need to wind it down and sell it. The thing is, your independence will only exist on your personal balance sheet, either because of sale or because of consistent cash flows you've moved to your personal balance sheet over time. I hate complimenting.
We need to go to the tape. I think we need to go to the tape on that one.
I hate complimenting myself, but not enough to not do it. So good job, me. Number 91, Cory. Number 91, not knowing your monthly cash burn. Go.
So if you don't have a destination in mind, how would you know if you're actually getting there? Meaning one day we want to be able to have a life where we can be work optional and have our assets take care of our needs. But if we don't know what those monthly needs are right now, then how are we going to know what it takes to replace them? The other idea is that if we don't know what we're spending on a monthly basis as far as what we expect, then how are we going to know if things defer or sway from the expected? Meaning a new expense comes in, we've added some other expenses, that kind of slow creep of subscriptions and memberships that can add up on our balance sheet. There's all kinds of inefficiencies we can uncover if we have some idea of what we expect this should be on a monthly basis, and then can double check and adjust from there.
Right on. I like
that timer, it's getting me to it's like coming into the home stretch a lot earlier, like leading the ball.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I think we're going to have requests from the audience to say, would you just put Paul on a timer all the time? Just even when it's not just every episode. Yeah. Just like he only gets like 3 minutes to hit particular monologues. You'll notice I made a quick shift in our agenda here to shift them around a bit. I want to take number 92 next, which is spending money for prideful purposes. Ready?
Go.
So here we just left, I think June was Pride Month. This is not the kind of pride that I'm talking about when it comes to your money. Pride, in its definition, is the way that you assess you. And the way that you assess you has some beginning level of importance. Like if you think you're an absolute piece of garbage, you're likely to have that come across in your performance. But just getting to a healthy ego, then beyond that, what you think of your own performance is really not very effective. What matters, if you have a customer, let's say, you could think you did a great job, and the customer could be like, you guys are awful and you're fired. That customer's opinion is the one that matters most in that situation. There's all kinds of purchases we make that may or may not improve our life, but we are literally acquiring them because of what we think about that. I'm a car guy. I really like a big house. And yet those decisions, if they're prideful, can erode your capacity to build wealth because you spend too much. Whew, that was a close one.
I mean, I was almost going to give it to you, but then your timer went off too. So I'm like, well, I guess he did go over.
I think I escaped it. I think our audience could see it. Our audio engineers would see that there was actually dead air for 1 second. Jordan's give me a thumbs up, Cory. So right. I think we're going to have to give Jordan a camera and a microphone for these in the future and just let him like periodically pop in, especially when we're doing contests. Be like, oh, that was a pass.
Yep.
All right. Next one is to Cory. Not having your will or...
93, number 93.
Oh, yes, number 93. I skipped one. Nice work. Number 93, not having a will or trust. Cory, go.
In actuality, we all have a will already. In whatever state that we live, the government has a default will for us. So it's not that you can't have a will. We've all already not broken this one, except it might not be the will that we want. And that's what's key is to, and as far as what a will is going to do, if you're young and you have kids, the kids are the most important part of it. It's not who gets to have your couch that we really care all that much about, but it's just, and it's also to say what happens in end of life issues, medical directives, healthcare, power of attorney, those kind of things. Those all get done as one package. And it's really to have made a decision in advance so that anybody that might have any disagreement with it, that decision doesn't have to get mad at anybody else. Life's going to be tough if people are reading your will. So let's just make it a little bit easier on them one way or the other.
Well said.
Number
you cleared it.
Number 94. Yeah, that was a false positive. That was
just me not hitting my counters fast enough.
Number 94, counting on a robo-advisor for the success of your finances. Paul, go.
I think I could best explain this by telling you all about a video we're going to release on YouTube probably by the end of this month. And it's a video of this guy who comes home and he has one of those little robot vacuum cleaners. And he and his wife stayed out late and the dogs were there and the little robot got out and scared the dogs. Dogs freaked out, tipped over garbage cans. Dogs also defecated in the house. And the robo-advisor is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. And it goes right over the poo and just spreads it out real thoroughly. It uses that extra little brush to get up against the baseboards and just kind of paints the baseboards. Horrible mess of the floor and the couch. And finally, the little robot just died in place somewhere in the living room as it's trying to get through all this garbage that's been spread around by the dogs. That's what it's like sometimes with your money. They work to get you a decent rate of return and pay no attention at all to tax ramifications, net worth, estate taxes, or efficiency, just returns. Ooh. Cory, you're up next.
You be the judge. Only you can judge your own heart.
Well, let's say Jordan giving me a thumbs up. I don't know if that means thumbs up like you just earned a point or thumbs up like I was okay, but either way, he thinks the way he did it is accurate. We'll leave it to Jordan.
Okay.
All right. Let's go next to number 95, which is a little tail on number 93. Cory, not having your will or trust up to date.
Go. I can't tell you how many times the conversation has gone something like this with a client. Do you have a will? Yes, with a sheepish smile. Because here's the thing. It's about 20 years old and it's about 10 kids ago and this property and that property and, my second marriage since that, whatever it is. And so we reach a certain point where it no longer becomes a yes to that question if it's that out of date. So there's a couple things you can do. One, your attorney can put language into the will from the beginning that handles a lot of the updates that might need to happen in advance, like naming all your children instead of each child by name, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So that you have some runway to get that done. But the bottom line is if you've had a lot of things change in life, you've moved around, there may be some language in there that could now be doing some things you didn't intend it to do. Yes.
Oh man, I thought I was going to get you. I was even holding the phone right to the microphone so our audience would just hear the blaring alarm.
Mm-hmm. All right. Number 96, Paul, care too much about tax savings. I'm really looking forward to this one. Go.
This is a ancient Confucian saying. Do not let the tax tail wag the wealth dog. I'm pretty sure that's been around for thousands of years. No one can verify. Don't try and Google it if you're listening. It wouldn't be safe. You're probably driving. Okay. The idea being is that people will make a decision that's a good tax decision, but it may not be the best possible long-term wealth building decision. I'm going to give an easy example. Many people recommend that young professionals, first thing they do is max out their 401k. In a traditional 401k, that means it's going to be taking out of their tax bracket now to have taxes paid on it later. Well, if you put $18,000 away when you're in your 20s making $150,000 a year, plus you have kids, mortgage deduction, spouse, all that is deductible, puts you in a very low tax rate, and then you're going to pull it out after kids have moved out, sold the business. Hopefully you're still married, but the house is paid off. You're going to be paying more in taxes. You just let the tax tail wag the wealth dog.
All right. Now, you get that one. You get that one. I saw the...
No, there wasn't by a lot.
Right.
All right, Cory. This is home stretch. I feel like even though we kind of we had Drew Knowles on and then we had Scott Adams on, this kind of feels special. We're nearing the end of this top 100 and I now want to do more of these lists in our episodes.
Really
I like.
this.
There's a guy who does this countdown, but instead of being like a top 10, he does it as a 7+1, like like a magazine full of 7 bullets, and then there's like the one in the chamber. So he just adds 1 to the end of all his top lists. Okay, so as Cory and I discussed live for all of you what we might do in future production value for the podcast, let's instead go to number 97, Cory, on the top 100 list of things you should not do. How about not understanding your investment decisions?
Go. So occasionally I encounter the most dangerous phrase in meeting with clients. And most often, the most dangerous phrase happens around investments more than anything else. And that phrase is, well, I don't quite understand, but I trust you. So let's go do this. And that's scary. More than anything else, it's a full stop, because only you can fully understand the implications for a strategy in your life. No advisor can know all of those things. We might be missing something because it's not our life, it's yours. So you don't have to be up for a PhD in whatever this topic is, but we do need to get to a point where any strategy, especially investment decisions, you understand enough to know why it's helpful and important for you, and then you can be excited about that strategy. If you don't get to that point, then it's not time to move and not time to get in action.
Well put. And I would throw out that idea of the client saying, I just trust you. The way I was trained by financial institutions at the very beginning of my career was that is the highest compliment a client could pay you. And for most of you, if you have an advisor now, that's probably something they really enjoy, is the amount of trust that they have with you. And what we want is informed trust with our client relationships, meaning they trust because everything we've said in the past is accurate, that what we're saying now is accurate too, but it does require accuracy. It does require that we interrogate reality enough to make sure that you and us are all on the same page about what any financial decision is going to do.
Yep. Well said, Paul. All right. Number 98, not watching fees. Go.
All right. So when you're thinking about investment management fees, believe it or not, in our world, it's not what you think is eating up your returns that's eating up your returns. Let me explain. Many people would think it's what they pay the advisor. Let's say they pay their advisor 1% or 1.5% a year for their asset management. People get all wrapped up about that fee. That is not the biggest, most problematic fee. It's the ones that we do not see. It's the reconstitution costs of the indexes, which unless you subscribe to some academic tools to understand what that is, you won't be aware of it. Next would be just the internal costs of your mutual funds that go largely undisclosed. Perhaps, Cory, we could put in the show notes of this podcast the real cost of owning mutual funds from Fortune years ago. You don't see those articles too often because the entire mutual fund complex does not want to talk about them, and they produce most of the marketing dollars in the industry. Last, those fees, you need to pay attention to them. And if you have an advisor, make sure they're giving you value, not just managing your money. Well, I might as well keep going now, because what happens is that I mean, if I'm already paying the price, I might as well. If I paid the fee of getting the point, Cory, I should at least get the value of talking for an extra minute. So,
well done.
Speaking of fees, so I would lastly say that for all of you listening, fees can be important. But if you have an asset manager now and all they're doing is reviewing your investments with you, and they're not also taking a look at your debt structures, wills and trusts, reviewing your car, homeowners insurance, all of that, then they're happily taking fees off of your investments, while your investments might very well be jeopardized because of inappropriate protection on your car or homeowners insurance. Or it could be spent down rapidly because they never talked about life or disability insurance. They didn't review your group benefits. They didn't even integrate your 401k decision in with your personal investment decisions. All of those things combined can make your money really inefficient and be worse inefficiency than just not paying attention to fees. Pay attention to the fees that the mutual funds and ETFs and indexes cost you, and make sure the advisor, if you're using one, is doing something more than the investment management for you to make sure you're efficient overall in paying them their fees. Cory, I don't know what's taking you so long, but why don't you just do number 99? Number 99 is not realizing that your time and your future income are your most important assets.
Go. All right, let's start with your future income. If you take a look at your balance sheet, you might think that something like your home or your 401k or a business that you own is the largest value number on there. But if you take your income per year times the number of years you have left to work, then I'm almost positive for 99.5% of everyone listening, that's going to be a bigger number. So your ability to earn that income, that's what made all of that possible in the first place, is the thing that's the most valuable on your balance sheet in the future. And your time is the most valuable thing you have today, because that's what lets you turn your efforts into income. It's lets you mold and adjust your path through life. Without your time, if your time is distracted for unprofitable pursuits, then you're never going to get things to go the way that you want them to go. Yeah.
Very good, Cory.
There we go.
Nice. Now, we have a number 100 that Cory's going to finish, but we do have a +1. We did forget about the one in the chamber. It's number 101, which will be me. So, Cory, you're going to take number 100, yep. Not owning long-term care insurance. Go.
Folks are surprised often how long we have left to live. Like, lifespans have been increasing, longevity and life expectancy has been going up and up and up. But here's the problem. We've done away with all the things that kill us quickly for the large part. So what we have left are the lingering diseases. Like, that's where medical science is still working, the chronic conditions. So we're living longer, but we haven't yet, the speed of quality of life is not increasing at the same pace. So all of us have a bigger and bigger chance of a period of our life at the end where we're less and less able to take care of ourselves. Long-term care insurance insulates us and our families from the impacts of that reality. And the way that I put it is, I have a great relationship with my parents. I'm not going to go stick them away somewhere in a home. They're going to be nearby. And I just want our relationship to remain wonderful. I don't want to do bathroom time with my parents. Like, I just don't want to do that. And that one's worth going over, because it gets me a little emotional, gets me a little choked up. So it's not about having enough money to pay for care, because with Medicaid and these different resources, we're going to get care one way or the other, even if we have to spend down all of our money to then get it. But it's giving us choices, being able to construct our lives and protecting our assets. That's why we want to look at long-term care insurance. All right, Paul, the +1.
Well, right before we do the +1, I'm thinking the 100 +1. We should just talk a little bit about what you can do with all of this, get our final tally on our contest here today with our scoreboard, because I can't see the scoreboard live. So I actually need Jordan to tell us. Jordan, what's the score between Cory and I?
Paul has 3, Cory has 2.
Paul has 3, Cory has 2. Cory wins the day. I, just like golf, am the highest scorer on the course. And one thing I want to add to what you said there, Cory, is that we can also forget to get ourselves added as that secondary premium notification on our parents. So if your parents have long-term care insurance, don't think you're out of the woods. You need to make sure they've added you as their child as secondary premium notification. It's now required by law that every long-term care insurance company give the insured a chance to add somebody else, because as people age, they're more likely to miss bills. And if they miss that bill, that coverage could be gone when you need it most. So with that, and then a reminder for everybody listening, we love your reviews. We love when you guys take the time to pause and write something about the show. How can you do that? Sometimes people wonder. All you have to do is go to iTunes. And when you get to iTunes, look for Your Business, Your Wealth, which you're probably listening to right now, but that's going to take you to the main page. What you want to do is just scroll all the way down to the main Your Business, Your Wealth page. It'll be the most recent podcast at the top. Scroll down to the bottom, and you will see a chance to add stars or write a review. Just hit that write a review, say something that is honest. You are always welcome to give a 5-star rating. And if you do, go ahead and take a screenshot of that, send it to us for any honest rating that you've given, and we will send back to you a copy of Michael Michalowicz's Clockwork, a copy of Sound Financial Advice, or Cory's book, Cape Not Required. You let us know when you email us at info@sfgwa.com. Don't forget to follow us on all the socials. You can follow us on Twitter At Wealth Podcast. Can you believe we have At Wealth Podcast? We have such a great team here that we managed to get that. You can follow me.
I don't know who we had to kidnap for that one, but yeah, it's great.
Yep, you can follow me on Twitter, Ask Paul Adams. You can find Cory and I on LinkedIn. All the other socials, feel free to reach out to us. We love hearing from the fans of the show. And now let's hit number 101, which is thinking that you can make a single decision from this list without working with a coach or as somebody teaching you about these concepts as an advisor. You see, it's all too easy. And we don't want this podcast to become anything other than some good vitamins for your financial thinking. Some that's not driven by the big mutual fund complex. It's why we don't have any of them as advertisers, although they would love to be. Why we do this podcast is for all of you. But we constantly want to encourage you that you're not working with us. You should be working with someone else who can see the broader picture more broadly than you can see. You see, if you're in the income range of the folks that we work with at $300,000 to $2 million of annual income, odds are you're really, really great at creating income. And you're really, really great at building your business. But those are not the same skills that it takes to building a strong balance sheet. And you need to have somebody in your life that's good at that part also. To pause long enough with you and your spouse outside the morass of all the daily commitments that everybody has, to pause long enough to look at that future, to look at what's important to your family for the decades to come, and to shorten the feedback loop of the decisions we're making today so we can see what that decision you're making today is going to do in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, compare it and improve it. Because if not, you won't be able to learn from the financial mistakes that you make. You will have to live with them.
Building on what Scott Adams said in our last podcast, we're all, even if we know these techniques are working on us, we're still susceptible to them, but we can also all very well see them working on other people. Mm-hmm. And that's where having someone else looking in, they can spot the things happening to you that you might not be able to see and help you correct that course. And I think that's huge.
Absolutely. And as you may know, we work with clients all over the country. We do all of our work by Zoom meeting. We'd love to have that conversation with you if you're so inclined. But if not, tell your advisor to start listening to this podcast. We're now getting introductions from other advisors from across the country simply because a client is in a location. It doesn't make it easy for the client to be able to work with that advisor. And we're finding more and more advisors are listening to our podcast every day. So don't hesitate to say, hey, I want to explore this on my balance sheet. Could you listen to this episode? And how you might screen that advisor is if they were to give you a lot of opinions about why they thought that podcast was no good or that strategy was no good, but they didn't supply you with data, a comparison, what they're doing versus what maybe we suggested on some particular podcast, and see whether or not they're using math, indisputable math, and independent scholarship as their standard for recommendation, or is it based upon their opinion and experience? We don't want you taking our opinion. We'd encourage you not to take anybody else's, but make sure that you're learning in a way that gives you the greatest likelihood of being responsible for your future. And as always, what we hope is that this episode, like every episode, has been a contribution to you being able to design and build a good life. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our channel, ring that bell, and by the way, make sure to share this video. I don't know if you know this, but my cyborg body runs 100% on YouTube views and likes. Please don't let my batteries die.